Welcome to my little room. Welcome to my little room. Welcome. Hi, welcome to Paul's Little Room. Today I'm going to be doing a interview with my brother Jerome.
Hello.
So tell me about yourself.
I'm a technologist in architecture, and I by the day, and other people might know me from grip sport and arm wrestling, but got a lot of records in grip strength, and that's my thing. Got quite a
Yeah.
good knowledge in. I love music, and yeah, let's see where this goes. So quite different people, even though we're very very similar looking.
So yes, in fact, I've gained a lot of, I would say, since my being in my 20s, interest in rock music, thanks to Jerome. And I used to listen to indie music a lot, and when I was younger. But when we started to go on road trips together, me and Jerome, it really opened up what we wanted to listen to. And so yes, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Okay, so I'm continuing just with sound. And right, so Jerome, tell me a little bit about your experiences with music.
Well, even though I'm in a technical sort of existence in my day job, I've always been very much musically orientated, and it helped me with my studies and with my art, and with it helps me with my training. For a long time, I didn't have a TV, and that would be my hobby, just sitting and listening, going through albums,
Mm.
and it's just a very important part of my life.
Yeah, and would you say that your tastes in music have changed a lot from when you're growing up, when we're growing up, into your 20s and then into your 30s and 40s?
I wouldn't say my okay. So I would say I've got a broader taste than when I was younger, and there's things that are quite cheesy from my childhood that I would have, that I was still hugely biased towards, and yet
Any
if I was to,
examples?
yeah, well, I mean, sort of albums. The first album on vinyl I ever got was Aha,
Brilliant.
and and even though they're great, I'm very much more. I'll tend to go over and over some albums, just like films. There'll be some things that you get into a habit of for a while. There's a lovely thing called the Postmodern Jukebox, which is a New York-based company who they'll do covers of modern tunes,
Mm-hmm.
of every genre, and typically pop, but in a they'll pick a decade, so it'll be 1920s, or it'll be the 40s or the 30s. And they'll do a full mock up on stage. So they'll really do it. There's one, I can't even remember her name. There's a young lady who had a very popular song fairly recently, who the Postmodern Jukebox did such a good takeoff of it that it's a earworm in my head now. It's such a good song,
Right, right,
unrecognisable from the original. So
right, right. Um, I've got to admit, a lot of the music that I've got into recently, I've heard just coincidentally when I've been in places of interest. For instance, going to the CEX Games shop, I heard a song called "The Joker" by Brandy Carlisle. Is that the name?
I don't know. I can find out.
And this song just really hit me. It was powerfully sung and simple.
American singer-songwriter Brandy
Oh,
Carlisle.
there you go. Yeah, that's her. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's a song about the difficulty being gay in Texas.
Is
Well,
it the one called The Story?
it is the story. No, no, it is the Joker, I think. Um,
Oh, The Joke.
the joke, the
Okay.
joke, and she's just so so powerful, and she's got that kind of classic kind of depth and texture in her voice. Someone would describe it as gravelly textures
Okay.
with a wide vocal range. She doesn't overdo the upper registers at all. She's got quite she has a very smooth baritone delivery, but then she can go up there when she's built up the energy in the song, and it was amazing. I'm not that keen on some of her other music in that it is kind of country music, and for me, I like the instrumentals and the vocals being quite pure and simple, and
I think a lot of people like Americana because it's simplistic. So
yes,
so
yeah,
it's kind of a down to earth sort of very simple singer songwriter. I think
yeah,
that it can be off putting by the subject matter because they're very mundane. They don't tend. I mean, it's less poetic, but I mean it's a lot of it's very good music as far as there's some good stuff out there if you want Americana as to whether you
yeah,
go down the
yeah,
bluegrass route or the country sound now tends to be more of a pop based country. But I
yes.
mean, there's some good things out there. I wouldn't be able to name anyone, but
Well,
the
yeah, I've discovered
mm,
some music recently. If I can look for the um, audience listening to this, I'm just looking through my CDs as Joan's talking, and I'm looking for a CD which is some country and western music. Um, and oh, here we go. Now, I was actually in a bookshop which had some second-hand CDs just recently. What I like to do, I go to second-hand shops and I look for stuff I've not heard of, and then what I do is I look it up on YouTube and I listen
mm.
to it on my headphones on my there and then I decide whether I like it or not.
Have you heard
Um,
Ward Thomas? It's a couple of sisters who they're English, but they do
oh right.
really quite good. Can't say
Mm,
classic, but they're
mm.
they're very much the Memphis type
Oh right. No,
kind of
no,
a
no. I
sound.
don't think I have actually. I'm going to have to look them up. Um,
Cool.
but yeah, this singer, it's Jamila Alexander and the Satellites,
Right.
and the album's called Burn a Little Brighter. And what took me aback was the way he sings the introductory song to the album,
Oh.
and listening to the rest of the album, it's got a lot of the tropes which I love in singer songwriter music. In that he's got a lot of depth and texture and emotion. A lot of he doesn't sing full on. There's not like a crescendo through the whole song. I don't. I like a song where it's almost like a story, and it's
It's ironic considering you wanted to talk about road music today. I think we'll bring it on to
well.
that in a
This
bit.
is
But
one of my choices, definitely for sure. There's a song which this album starts with, which is called "Baby Don't," and it's definitely my first pick as a road song, which I would pick from songs I've discovered recently.
mhm.
But it's one of those albums where I would describe it as very Irish folk in style, but with that American country instrumentals, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So if you look at the lyrics and if you hear his voice, he sounds like he could almost be an American who has, he could almost be like an Irishman who's lived in America for a while. He's got very heart on his sleeve. But
Okay.
what's great about this album is that it's got some very strong violin in there, very, very strong textures to the guitar. The guitar is almost as important as the vocals, and it doesn't just follow the very, very stereotypical tropes of of country. They don't. I don't think they use that slide guitar. The guitar which they have horizontally on a table, and they don't have. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are some songs on there which do, but certainly the first
Mm.
few songs are very from his. It's very personal and from that singer's own perspective, and not very commercial. I can imagine it's probably not very popular.
They've got the whole album's available on Spotify.
Oh right, oh, that's good.
It's got Baby Don't as the second song. I was just trying to
Yeah,
isolate it as
yeah.
a single tune.
I think any representation of his sound will be good. Yeah.
Okay, well let's just give it a go.
See, there's the beautiful emphasis on the guitar. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, very nice. I wouldn't call it.
If you zoom forwards to the vocals, maybe it's
Let's do that. I forwards to an advert.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
organise
but
that.
if you hear the guy's song, he's got quite a strong upper register, but it's very rough in its delivery.
Is he anything like Neil Young? Because there was a sort of
Yes,
feel
yes.
from the start there. that I was getting
100%.
Okay.
Yes, I would say he's definitely been inspired a bit by Neil Young, for sure. So that's my first choice. What I would listen to on the road.
Okay. So are you titling this one officially Road Tunes or just
No, just
stuff
a
you
chat.
like to drive to?
A chat with my brother, discussing things we like to drive to.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's a difficult one because I like a lot of music. So I've just to narrow it down a little bit. What I've done is I'll literally just go think. Okay, think of a singer, think of a band, pick one tune that I like that I think I could, and then I tightened it up to a top 10. Although it's now a top 9. There's one I'm going to have to swap.
Right.
We'll discuss that, but it's a good thing, little exercise. So go to you're only allowed one tune per band.
Right.
So let's say the Rolling Stones or something like that, and it's great because it's a good excuse to listen to a lot of it.
Right.
And then what would you most want to drive to? And you end up with a short list. I mean, I could have a top 1,500 for road driving because I've got a lot of music, but the ones I ended up with. So Iron Maiden, you probably noticed my T-shirt on the intro. The Trooper is fantastic. I mean, there's other rolling. My idea of of the best road type driving tunes is it's got to have a rolling theme that keeps you going.
Yes.
And it doesn't take too much development. It can develop. It can have parts to it, but I mean a good example of one that develops in an interesting way would be say Crazy on You by Heart, where it starts with a classic guitar. I think it's not a 12 string, is it? Anyway, but the point is it starts with almost a Spanish guitar-esque type intro, and then it goes straight into a very brisk acoustic second intro, if that makes sense, into the theme, and then it goes on to quite a heavy vocal, and it's just a beautifully done tune, and they throw in a kind of a lovely cheesy electric guitar by their lead guitarist as well. So it's sort of it's got everything going for it, but more importantly, it's got a gallop to it, as does the Trooper, very deliberately, the Trooper, rather than an acoustic setup, it's got Harris's bass setup, but then very much a lead guitar going with it, with a sort of a galloping theme, and it's perfect for that. I'm not going to say this in any particular order because I wouldn't say, I mean, even though it's one of my favorite tunes, I'm sure everyone's the same. It's what you're listening to at the moment. There's tunes you'll love that you haven't listened to for years. I mean, there's tunes that, I mean, the China album by Vangelis I love, but I wouldn't listen to it driving.
Well, I've got a Vangelis compilation album which has a few tracks from China, and was it the China album that had The Long March.
Long March, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
because the Long March was actually one of my favourite tracks from when I was very small, when we were about.
It's quite harsh as an adult
Yeah.
listening to it because it's very right up in the trebles there, you know. So
Yeah.
there's other tunes. There's the Blossom Tree, is it? There's one which is he's got a violinist doing a solo on that, and it's much easier on it here.
Oh, that song, the Blossom Tree,
Cherry Blossom or something like that. Yeah.
I think I know the one you mean, and that one I listened to a lot when I was in quite a stressful job.
It's not really a drivey one
It chilled
again
me
because it's very much for
Yeah.
when you're sitting still because it
Yes.
keeps you positive. It's a
Yes.
the way you describe it is it's a almost like a ballroom dance as
Right,
opposed to a gallop.
Oh,
okay?
yes, yes.
So something like it's not got a timing such as sort of a you know, a waltz or something like that, but
Right.
it's something that sets you on the floor. It's that sort of a rhythm. Whereas what I tended to kind of go towards on my on the short list are more of the sort of rolling beats.
Yes.
So I've got the Troopers. I've got Steppenwolf is the obvious one. Born to be Wild.
Yes. That's for me. It's very nostalgic. Driving with You. I used to love listening to Steppenwolf, and I used to love listening to Deep Purple.
Deep Purple,
as well.
Highway Star. That's probably the reason I would favour that over other Deep Purple songs is because it just goes straight into it, and it's got it really takes it by the balls. You know, it's complete. It's really kind of an anthem,
Right.
and very very energetic. Very energetic.
Yes.
It's very similar to Black Sabbath, you know, Paranoid, where it launches straight into a very energetic and total monotone for you know, from the vocals,
Right.
but improvised almost. Apparently for Paranoid, it was they were asked to do an additional song, and there was late at night. They'd already done the whole of the album,
Right.
and they wrote up a few lyrics in it very hurriedly, and became pretty much their biggest hit, considering they took no time writing it.
Yeah, that's often the case.
Yeah, but it's got such a good guitar riff. I mean, it really it's great. And guitar riffs, I mean, okay, if you wanted one where you get it into the third or fourth act before they get the guitar riff, so it's the exact opposite. Go with The Chain by Fleetwood Mac. So it's entirely rhythm section only. So it's the drum and bass and the vocals.
I really love the album the album that the Chain was on, but I prefer the live version.
Rumours.
Yeah.
Oh, Rumours is great.
The live. I think Fleetwood Mac live. They all put their own the individual band.
Well, the only thing is with most of the songs, absolutely. The only thing is of all the songs, The Chain was very much spliced together. The not the main tune, but the actual guitar riff at the end was a improv job that Lindsey Buckingham pieced together. So he did quite a lot of alternative takes, and they took the best bits of it.
Right.
So it's obviously, you can imagine. I'm sure he wasn't annoyed doing it, but you imagine they're performing on stage and he's having to redo something that was free flowing and totally improvised, but repeating it can be problematic. Whereas if you have you know someone like Peter Frampton, where it's supposed to be improvised, you know you're supposed to go new places. It's quite interesting where you get a very liberated guitarist like Lindsey Buckingham having to repeat something like that. But I'd be curious to know if he changes it deliberately occasionally. But anyway, now that he's been sacked from Fleetwood Mac, Boston is the obvious one. Boston, the album Boston by Boston. So if you go with Boston's tunes, they're all anthemic. But if you wanted one whole album for driving, it would be Boston. It's just really, really tightly produced. In fact, production was where they came from pretty much, because the guys who started the band were into electronics, and they actually had this idea of coming up with their own sound, and
Right.
they literally launched straight into it with one of possibly the best debut album of all time of anyone.
Right.
Incredible.
Hmm.
I say that having obviously there was Dreamboat Annie by Heart, which is obviously that was
Yeah. So
yeah.
do you have any particularly fond memories of any parts of your life where those some of these tracks were significant?
Well, Deep Purple, driving along with you around with you in was it in Bolton? No, it was in Lancashire. Over in the hills. It was amazing. Really, but there's tunes that really strike a chord at any time. So when I was driving, I don't know. There was, I remember being in Canada when there was Simon and Garfunkel on, and it was it was Celia.
Ah, yes,
because
Celia.
Because it's got
You're breaking my heart.
it's got this incredible drum piece in it.
Yeah,
and it's something like 3 or 4 different people doing the acoustics.
It's kind of a very simple rhythm going.
It's amazing, and it's just that's it. That would be a great road tune. I was going to have "Smokestack Lightning" by Howling Wolf, because one of my all-time favourite songs.
Yeah,
but let's swap Celia for that, because I was going to do Creedence Clearwater Revival, but and particularly the Run Through the Jungle.
right.
But that's based on Smokestack Lightning.
Right.
So I can't have both. So I'll have the Creedence, even though it's not the original. So they're very original. Actually, it's funny how Creedence. None of them were from the Deep South.
Oh, right.
They were from Western. Were they from Western USA? In any case, they weren't Southern at all. But they created this really authentic pseudo bluegrass sound.
Right.
And somehow turned them into these great protest songs as well.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, what else? So I've got the only one I've got left on here is Rolling Stones. So,
which album?
Can you guess which song I would do as the best road?
Jumping Jack Flash.
That's a good one. I've got that on my playlist. No, Give Me Shelter.
Oh right, yeah.
It's just a little bit more. I like the maracas, so it goes.
Yes.
You know that?
We were both like doing that.
Yeah, but it's actually the way they use the backing vocalists just as almost like a little gospel piece there. It's just so well made. Yeah. There's other songs that I love Rolling Stones, but it's for driving. It really will keep you going.
Oh yeah, I've got 3 Rolling Stones compilations actually, and one I'm looking at now is Grr, which was a quite a good one. Yeah, interestingly, I've been listening to more of the later Rolling Stones tracks more recently. One was it's a very funny song. She Was Hot.
Oh,
and it comes across a bit misogynistic.
But okay, is it relevant for the driving theme?
It's the kind of tune where we're nearly at our destination. We've got 10 minutes.
Right.
Finally, we've managed to. We're back up. We're off of the motorway, and we can see our destination coming.
Oh yeah, that last painful hour.
Yeah. And that song, it's got a ding 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 ding.
Okay.
She's so hot. It's but the way she and she's so cold like an ice cream cone.
Sounds like sort of early 60s sort of folk revival kind of thing.
Yeah, but interesting, it's one of their later ones, of their later hits actually. I think, is it from the 80s or the 70s? I think it's more likely to be from the 80s. But yeah, can I very quickly? I'll just run through.
Do you know? When you were singing it, you sounded like Bob Dylan the way he would sing it, sing that sort of thing.
I like it.
Yeah. So, but I prefer one of his newer. Say newer. It was in the
Mm.
'70s, I think. Blood
Yeah.
on the Tracks. I love that album.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. Blood on the Tracks was one of those albums I listened to when I was working in an antiques shop, and I put it on a loop. Well, with my my driving list, I always enjoyed listening to what Jerome listens to, and those were really my introductions to those bands, because I was never when I was at university, I followed the lead of my friends at the time, mostly
You were all indie guys, weren't you?
indie, exactly. So I would listen to a lot.
Flaming Lips. I heard
Flaming
a lot, yeah.
Lips and the Pixies were the two big ones for me. And interestingly, I listen to less of the Pixies now because of their the production values of the albums are make them very difficult to listen to. Which I know that's
Really?
and that's not meaning to sound snobbish. They're the kind of album, if you play it on two speakers, then they sound great, with maybe a little bit of a bass emphasis, But the problem is the production's flat on a lot
I
of
like
the
the
albums.
production on. Is it Bossa Nova?
Oh, Bossa Nova, yeah. Bossa Nova and Doolittle are almost like sister albums. They go. You can listen to them one after
Well, the
the other.
indie rhythm is more of the kind of Monkeys Gone to Heaven, that sort of thing. But
Yes,
they
yes.
do have a few
Yes.
kind of. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think. So, is that Where's My Mind? No, not where.
There goes.
My
Here-
Man.
There goes my man.
I love that song. I
yeah.
could drive to that definitely.
But my problem is that a lot of the way the recordings are compressed, so you can hear that the band were doing a brilliant job, but the problem is there weren't enough microphones set up. It's almost like there's one microphone set up at the front, and there's no texture and depth to the song, and it's a shame because they're amazing songs, incredible songs, which the producer.
It's funny how some groups that
Yeah.
actually is a benefit.
Yeah.
I'd agree with you in a way. I was
Nirvana.
right.
They had the same. Nirvana, Nevermind, had exactly the same producer, but it comes across with absolute energy.
They probably just had better studio time and a bigger budget. I mean, David Gray was saying how there was one interview where he was saying how
Steve Albini is the
Okay.
producer.
Oh, okay. But I saw an interview with David Gray, and he was saying that the big popular album, I think it's White Ladder.
Yeah, White Ladder.
That was the one album. It was his fifth album or something that was produced entirely in his bedroom. But because it was produced heavier, it seemed to hit a chord with the public more. All of his songs before that were very much singer-songwriter acoustic stuff, but they were all more expensive. They were all in a proper studio, and you imagine how soul destroying it must have been. So doing all these great, he's churned out good stuff. And,
He's a proper.
I mean, that
guilty
album
pleasure.
Sell is phenomenal.
Yeah, I listened. I love all of his music, to be honest.
And it is quite raw, even though it
Yeah.
was in a studio.
Right.
He and then the big hits came when he was just him and a friend, just in his bedroom. Going.
Yeah, I mean, he's the kind of singer who can be, unfortunately, typecast into a corner with like songs
That's
like
why
Babylon.
I heard he sacked his band, and he literally, not in a bad way. He literally said, "Look, I have to move on," and it was great. He still loves that he did that that's a part of. He wouldn't regret it. I mean, he's happily flogging his other stuff, but I think that he was always more of a singer-songwriter kind of a. I think he always had those itches to get out as far as writing and really lyrical stuff. I think he prefers. Right. But yeah, looking at the Pixies, they're very lyrical. And actually, there's some quite sentimental lyrics for such a rough sound.
Yeah.
You'd almost say that they're deeply rooted in the punk era. From their roots, and yet the lyrics are very, very sentimental and whimsical. Actually,
Well, yeah, it depends on the album. I mean, their first album, was it Come on Pilgrim? It missed a bit of their signature hard, soft sound. They mixed a bit of punk with garage rock and with a little bit of kind of singer-songwriter style lightness to it. They have that really interesting flavour of delivery of soft and hard. It's which is kind of cool. You know, a song would be kind of gentle. I'm talking about the melody. The lyrics are often quite hard. And
it's
edgy.
it's the whole Smashing Pumpkins effect. It's
Yes,
the kind of
yes.
soft and hard. Very similar,
100%.
sort of slightly harsh vocal on both those.
I think the
groups.
Smashing Pumpkins. I wonder if they were influenced by the Pixies, because Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. I absolutely adore that album, and you know, it's got heavy rock, and then it's got beautiful, almost it's tear-jerking moments.
Well,
to it.
deliberately softer on the second CD. It's a double CD, isn't it?
It's absolutely breathtaking. But interestingly, we've gone off the road here. We've been
Yes, so we need to get back onto the road.
Sat on the side having a sandwich before.
Yeah, I'm looking over and I see you've got Revolver. Now, Revolver is a little bit like, I almost got stuck with Boston as well, in that the whole album was worthy of a road trip, but not one. I managed to get a tune out of it, you know, their first title tune on it, but well, it's not the title tune, but Revolver, I had a similar problem in that I couldn't end up putting any of their tunes from that album on my list, but I would happily listen to the whole lot, because I mean, the drumming from the hugely underrated drumming from Ringo Starr is unbelievable. I mean,
it's been sampled a lot in dance tracks.
Fatboy Slim and all sorts. Chemical Brothers possibly. I'm trying to think. So, but it's just an incredible album. It's actually Rick Beato's favourite album of all time.
Oh, interesting.
Says it all, considering he's such a polymath, sort of a Renaissance type of a musician.
Do you know, I might say something interesting about this album, in that it's discordant and beautiful at the same time in how different every song is from each other. Really, it's another White Album in a way, in that every single song has a completely different production and a completely different flavour, and it's exciting because of that. And the reason I was going to put this Revolver as on my list was because if you're driving along late at night and you don't want to be listening to Bob Dylan, because it's fantastic, you can sing along, but then if you're feeling sleepy, then you might crash. But this album, it always holds your attention. Every single track takes a completely new direction. I mean, Taxman. It's almost like Taxman's like the Beatles, the way the Beatles should have been 2 albums earlier. It's like it's almost like you've got the early Beatles, and then you've said, right, here's better instrumentals.
Well,
here's
sharp
lyrics.
The Taxman was very much influenced by their own by Rubber Soul.
Yes.
You know, there was some big changes in Rubber Soul.
Oh yeah,
changing.
I love Rubber Soul.
Yeah, I mean, they changed what pop is. So it's sort of it's coming off of that.
Yeah.
I suppose a bit like what I'm thinking, Back in Black. You know, so a bit like that one, going off of something strong that they've already started doing. But then, so it comes in gently in a way, because you've got a really a newer rhythm in that one. The big difference between other than the experimental sampling and things, the Rubber Soul had a dragging rhythm to it. You know, they deliberately slowed.
Ringo's drumming was almost off point.
It was late, wasn't it? And deliberate, and then you come onto Revolver, and it's so sharp.
It's very sharp. Taxman is rhythmically, it's absolutely addictive. And then you go from Taxman, which is a political and energy-driven song, into Eleanor Rigby, which is, you can't get two more different songs. It's absolutely insane that the production different, the way they've recorded them, the way the lyrics, the instrumentals.
Well, George Martin had a much bigger influence on this album than he did on the previous one. I don't know who produced. I don't want to quote it wrong, but I don't know if he was even involved with Rubber Soul. But there's that wonderful little. It's only like a 6-part orchestra that they've got for Eleanor Rigby, but being in Studio One, it's got this big sound.
Yeah. Well, what's amazing about Eleanor Rigby as well is that they've got that orchestral sound. You can hear, or if you listen on some amazing headphones, you can really hear every instrument. You can hear as there's this reverb. There's this. You can hear the instruments hitting the wall in the studio, and you get this amazing echo of the studio. It's got this amazing kind of woody softness to it. It sounds like they recorded that whole song in a wooden room, and they probably did. And then,
well, it's a white painted. It's mostly masonry, actually.
Right.
No, the way they got those sounds was literally they'd move objects around in the studio. They would put acoustic baffles and things in there. But none of it was permanent. They didn't have a lot, it's very stripped down space, and they could, what the Beatles tended to do was to they would squeeze them into a corner with some literally with some acoustic screens and things like that, just to get the sound.
But definitely I was going to highlight Paul's vocals in this song are very forward, with those instrumentals, as you say, being it's almost like in Eleanor Rigby, it's almost as if every single instrument, and including Paul's vocals, every part of the track has a proper importance to it. So it's like the cello and the viola. I think that's what they were. You can really feel a warmth and a care in the sound, but it's almost like the particular instrument begins. It's almost like the microphone and the cameras then going over to them.
Well, I mean, the way I just superficially, if I saw them written down as music, I would presume that orchestral piece was, other than the different parts to it, I'd presume it was Paul on his bass guitar, because it's taking his same style of bass. The dun 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 dun. The way that he picked little Paul tended to change on every round. He'd change a verse, he would slightly change it, and but there's more of a repeating theme in Eleanor Rigby, but it's very much tuned to it's very much of his bass, isn't it? It's kind of very Paul. I don't know if it was Paul, or I think it might have been both John and Paul. They knew someone who...
They both contributed to...
But it was based on someone they knew of in Liverpool. Yeah. So it's kind of got a melancholy attached to it because of that.
It's one of those songs which is really pointing back to their origins, really, and where they came from.
You're talking about childhood memories, Yellow Submarine. I mean, that incredible introduction to Liverpool as a cartoon, with Eleanor Rigby. It was incredible.
Another one on this album. But Yellow Submarine's such an oddball, such a strange song. I was going to say it's a strange album. That's why I like this.
Probably the most drivey one is She Said at the end. She said, because it's got this. That's the one that was sampled by the Chemical Brothers. It's such a simple. It's absolutely solid drumming on that one.
It's fantastic.
Can I just,
we need to try and get through my
list. But no, I was just mentioning the fact that the sitar was a really cheap sitar they just got randomly. Even though they'd studied, George Harrison had studied in India, he brought that influence back, but he didn't bring this expensive sitar and load of instruments back. It's something that the band, as a joint decision, decided they wanted him to try with.
Oh, really?
And so they didn't get a really expensive sitar. It's a really cheap sitar in that album,
I
but
didn't
boy,
know
it
that.
makes all the difference. So what else have you got? You've got Dark Side of the Moon. That's a
Yes.
classic.
Well, yeah. Now, Dark Side of the Moon is an example of a album where I really love the storytelling and the layering of that song. It's almost like it's another album which keeps me awake. You know. Anyway, so Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. What's interesting about this album is if you're listening, it was one of the early albums which was recorded specifically for headphones, and so it's got this very polyphonic kind of multiple layers of sounds in particular parts of space in the mix. When was that written? I'm not sure. But what's fantastic about that album is a lot of people who call ourselves audiophiles use that as an example to test equipment and what's called the sound stage and the layering of the instrumentals.
Yeah, I was just trying to have a read of the production was quite an interesting one. That's a great thing about being able to look stuff up.
Anyway, so Jerome's looking up on his phone some details about the production of Dark Side of the Moon. But for me, as a driving album, it's one of those other ones which the instrumentals have a crispness to them. The recording, it's got a very hard-edged layering and almost you've got a very forward presentation of vocals.
I remember it was the Alan Parsons effect. So Alan Parsons, he worked on the production of it. He had started out with the Beatles as a junior sound technician in Abbey Road.
Oh, right.
So it actually connects the Beatles at Abbey Road with Pink Floyd and Dark Side of the Moon.
Right. Oh, that's amazing. So we have him to thank.
Yeah, well, he's famously had his own band, the Alan Parsons Effect, or something like that. No, Alan Parsons. I can't remember. But
I think that probably is the.
Yeah, but he was a prog rock, of course. Yeah.
Actually, okay, I might interject that I enjoy listening to certain parts of my music collection on different headphones, and when you're in a car, you've got the sound of the road, that kind of throbbing sound of the sometimes you have the lines
There's absolutely
the
there's
and it's almost a rhythm that the road adds to this track itself. And then you've got the almost speaker. It's almost like a two speakers at home. That's how the music is limited. In a very, very expensive car stereo, sound system, I'm sure you can actually have more of a headphone like environment. But
I think that that's one of the challenges of listening to something in a car with the white noise and things. You need something that carries through it.
Yes.
There's some. It's like I noticed you've got some U2 on there.
Yeah.
The trouble with U2, they're wonderful, but they've got these lovely soft changes in tone that are lost when I'm driving. And so they're great. Streets Have No Name, that sort of thing's great for driving to, but it has such a soft introduction, and it's a long one.
Oh, yeah,
it just comes in very gently, and then eventually you get the beat coming. But this
is a specific U2 album where I've chosen it because it works a bit better in that way. U2 pop. The reason it's got some classics on it like Staying at the Sun, which starts with it starts straight away with a very strong.
That's what I would look for usually
introduction.
if I'm driving. Yeah.
And then there's a song on here which no one's heard of, unless you're keen fan of this album. Wake Up Dead Man, and it's this pondering, kind of desperate. It's got this kind of desperate kind of fearful tone in it, and it's almost under sadness. It's difficult to describe. It's one of these songs where if you're playing this late at night and you're by yourself in the car and you think, what have I done with my life? Yes,
Well, I'm sat in this room that looks like it's like a really tidy version of Paul's bedroom from 35 years ago, and it's like what would you do if you could really be very sort of organised with all these things, and sort of which I think is quite charming in a way.
Oh, thank you.
It's,
Okay, well, I'm going to just very quickly maybe just talk about 3 albums which I've only recently been introduced to, which I'd like to introduce to Jerome. There's one which I'm giving to him now.
Oh, thank you.
And it's The Occasion by Harkness.
This one, I have to confess, I've listened to on Spotify because you told me you were giving it to me.
Yes.
So, and I thought it was very good.
Oh, good. And then the second one is Gem, Finally Woken.
Okay.
And then the third one is Robert Randolph and the Family Band. Now, the first 2 albums I would call electropop. The Occasion by Harkness is one of those albums where you can listen to the whole album from start to finish, and each track almost leads into one another, a little bit like some of the Queen albums lead into each track.
Well, Abbey Road, literally the album, Beatles album, Abbey Road, deliberately sort of.
Yes. Actually, that's one of my
Sgt.
list.
Pepper's Lonely Hearts.
Oh, definitely. So Harkness, The Occasion, is a mixture of electronics, real strong instrumentation, and vocals which are about an individual struggling through life and dealing with the expectations of the people who we meet. That's really what the album's about. And there's a little bit of romance in there as well. Gem, Finally Woken, is quite a famous one-hit wonder electro-pop kind of. It's got a bit of singer-songwriter in there. But I use this album to test out my headphones for their bass and for their transients. And what I mean by transients is the depth. It feels like it's almost like it's mesmerising in it. It's the depth of the sound and the subtle textures you get in this album.
I think you get a transient effect just by going across different tracks. On the board when you're recording, you can be like now and is it. Now I'm here, now I'm there, by the Queen,
yes.
Where you're deliberately moving between the.
Yes, exactly. That album, Now I'm Here, Now I'm There, that definitely has that effect.
Is that Night at the Races? I don't know, it might have been
maybe. But definitely that has a bit of the dark side of the moon moving.
Oh, very deliberate.
The sounds around
the playing around with the recording like that. It's great,
exactly. And then finally, Robert Randolph and the Family Band is something I think Jerome would like because it's a pure blues, modern blues, but with very positive. It's kind of. Instrumentals of pure blues.
Well, I love blues.
If you imagine getting blues and then pacing it exceedingly quickly with a Les Paul guitar, and it's almost got like a funk rhythm to some of it. And then vocally wise, there's just an excitement. You can tell that this band they're loving every single second of playing and singing on these songs. And it's almost I would choose this album as right. We've just got in the car. Let's start our journey. And so I would choose Robert Randolph and the Family Band. It's called Unclassified to start your drive. I would choose the Beatles for the middle of the drive. So maybe Abbey Road and Revolver. And then as you're starting to get a little bit tired, a bit going on the journey, I go to the more of the singer-songwriter stuff, maybe the Jimmy Alexander album. and then you're thinking, oh God, right, we need to inject a bit of energy into it. We've got the last hour left of our travel. I'm going to have a bit of electro pop. So I'd have LaRue. There's a famous song called "In for the Kill," and then Noisettes.
Oh, I like the Noisettes.
Aren't they
They're very
wonderful?
positive,
Yeah, and
they're sort of. I think I can. They're very pop orientated, but I mean.
yeah. Well, some of the songs, it's an interesting mix of I would say 1960s almost, the Supremes kind of inspiration on some tracks, mixed with hard electro pop and mixed with pure just fun pop as well. And there's an absolute exuberance to her singing. She's got a proper, almost a storytelling way.
You know,
singing.
I was mentioning postmodern jukebox before.
Yeah.
Very much they'll go with vocalists like that. You know, so
Right.
they'll have all this talent on the stage, different guest singers, and I might finish the podcast playing that tune by the Postmodern Jukebox, actually, just because it's very much of a theme. It's sort of one that I would happily drive on, and I wouldn't need. I would happily have it on a loop,
Right.
to be absolutely honest. And it's just a very, very positive sounding tune, and it's very much a take of a tune that I don't like.
Oh.
So let's crank it up and finish it on this nice note. Without the advert. So I think I'll finish this podcast on this tune that I'd happily listen to on a loop, and it would keep me happy on the road. And it's from the Postmodern Jukebox. This one they did a 10th anniversary one recently with different singers. Not as good.
All right.
But let's crank this up, and I hope you enjoy it.
Well, thank you very much.